Hello, ugly ducklings and secret hotties, coming to you from inside a changing room mid-fashion montage in Burbank, California. This is the Film versus Film podcast. I'm your host. Maybe you didn't notice me before because I was wearing glasses, Quinn Boys, and I'm joined as always by my co-host who lost a $100 bet that he couldn't make me the prom queen, Leonard Smith Jr.
Man, I tried mightily. I tried so hard. And you know what? Sometimes you win some, sometimes you lose some, but as long as you get that inner strength and that resiliency to realize that you matter, that's all that matters.
You lost the money, but you learned a lesson.
I did.
And we're talking obviously this week about glow up movies. These are movies where I think She's All That maybe established the modern template. Movies where someone is overlooked because they seem a little bit dowdy, they seem a little bit invisible in high school usually or in social settings, and then they flower. They change their outer appearance and it reflects their internal beauty, I think is usually how these movies go. But for more knowledge about the history of these films, we had to bring on someone who knows them better than we do. Leonard, can you introduce our guest, please?
Oh man, this is a member of Ocean's 11, a dear friend. He's out here making sure video podcasts are running well in the quarantine. It's our favorite gentleman, Rob Bowen. What's going on, Rob?
Hey, Rob. You're looking great, by the way. Did you look different for this podcast? I feel like I've never noticed you in this light before. Is that just me?
I got new glasses and a haircut just for this podcast.
Wow.
Yeah. Your beard looks amazing right now.
Did you put something in it? It looks wet.
It's a little bit of like a light gel just to keep it in place.
Oh,
I know all about that. I know about the dry beard, the dry skin beard. It's tough. It's a tough situation, and you are pulling it off very well.
You're pulling it off fantastically. Tell us, Rob, we oftentimes, we've been having guests this season. It's been a lot of fun, and we like to make sure our guest is comfortable with the prompt, that they're going to be judging our submissions. We want them to come correct. And you actually gave us this great idea. I didn't even really think of this as a genre, the glow up movie, but what inspired you kind of picking this prompt this week?
Well, you guys talked about doing the show, and I just wanted to make you guys watch something that I thought you wouldn't normally watch. Also, I wanted to watch something I wanted to watch, and I realized the common runner in a lot of these movies was the makeover scene. And I didn't even know before you asked me that I'm really into these movies. Like, so many of my favorites fit this template, and really wanted to see what you guys liked in this genre.
What would you say are your favorite makeover or glow up movies?
Devil Wears Prada has amazing montage. I think
Never
Anne
seen
Hathaway
it.
is like the queen of the makeover movie for the modern era. Princess Diaries.
Wait, hold on. Did you just say Anne Hathaway?
Anne Hathaway.
God, I thought she didn't want to be called Anne
It's
anymore.
Annie Hathaway, Rob. She had a glow up on her name recently.
She made over her name in the past few weeks. She this whole time has been upset that people have been calling her Anne Hathaway.
I love that she's been a famous person for 15 plus years, and now she's finally got the courage to be like, it's Annie, not Anne. And so it's too late. The ship has sailed. We know you as Anne.
Anyways, some more of your favorite movies, Rob. Sorry.
You said Miscongeniality, Rob. I almost picked that one. That's a great example of one.
Super fun one. Pretty Woman. Even like My Fair Lady, if you go pretty far back, I think kind of fits the template.
Yeah.
Was that made before 1984?
Yes.
We don't acknowledge.
We don't know. We don't talk about.
We don't
that.
acknowledge
That doesn't exist.
pre-1984 films on this podcast. Unfortunately, Rob, we feel film got to glow up sometime around 1984, and it's really not worth revisiting anything pre that year.
Speaking of glow up, Quinn, you look ravishing right now. You look amazing.
Wow, thank you. It's not that I just started combing my hair the other way.
Okay.
I've been combing my hair to the left my whole life. I just started combing it to the right, and the responses have been very strange. Cars are crashing into each other if I go outside. People are bagging groceries into nothing. Like, they're not even hitting the bag when I go to the supermarket.
Okay. I thought you just had that birthday glow. Everybody, we're recording this right now on Quinn's birthday, overshadowing and encompassing Martin Luther King Day. Who cares about that?
Well, that's you saying that, not me. I think we can have both. But I do appreciate. Yeah, it's my
Happy
30th
birthday, Quinn.
Birthday day. I appreciate it. Rob, don't let that affect your final judgment unless you want to. And we are recording on my birthday. It's very special. Happy to be here with you guys. This is a great way to spend my birthday. I will say, we were supposed to be recording yesterday. We would have missed my birthday, except we had a little bit of a snafu. And you know what? We'll announce our picks in a moment, but I'll just say that I picked a film, and Leonard misheard that film, which is hard to mishear because I texted it to you. And instead of my film, which I may as well reveal, and I'll start first, was My Big Fat Greek Wedding. Leonard watched Mamma Mia. And I was getting texts with him the night before we were supposed to film, and he's like, how could you do this to me? I'm going to come so hard after you. I hate you right now. I think you said, I hate you right now in one of the texts. And without saying that you were watching
initial
Mamma Mia.
text.
Right.
The initial
so
text.
I was like, wow, Leonard really had a strong response to My Big Fat Greek Wedding. I can't wait to get into this. We all get on the Zoom yesterday morning. Rob's ready to go. Thank you, Rob, for making 2 different times work. And Leonard goes, all right, let's dig into it. I'm going to tear you to pieces for Mamma Mia. And we're like, Leonard, that's not the film, buddy. Rob, did you just be like, why did I agree to come on this podcast when that happened? Leonard has got his head in his hands, so I think we can describe.
Honestly, when you told me that, I was really mad that I didn't pick the category as favorite movie with an ABBA soundtrack, because just the mental image of Leonard having to watch Mamma Mia still makes me laugh so much. Like I told you guys before, I've been singing ABBA songs all day because just randomly I have a quiet moment and I picture Leonard with a really angry face, like 3 minutes into Mamma Mia, knowing that there's another 90 minutes of baby daddy drama and music ahead of him.
I was livid. I dreaded watching this movie up until the moment. I procrastinated, tried to push it off as long as I could. I was upset at Quinn. I was cursing his name.
Yeah.
And I had to smoke a lot of weed to get through that movie, which is funny because that's probably the initial reason why I misheard the original response. I have now had an epiphany in that I should probably smoke less weed, and that's part of my quarantine glow up. You know what I'm saying?
I think smoking less weed is a good glow up for all of us. And
I have a question for Leonard. There's one scene in the movie that I really want to know, like where his head went, and it's been a while since I've seen it, but there's a bunch of guys on jet skis, shirtless, and I think the boyfriend's singing to Amanda Seyfried
with a cigar in his hand.
A cigar in his hand. What was going on in your brain during that whole scene on the beach?
My thought was, there's actually 2 black dudes in this group of 15 dudes. Where the fuck did he come from with this jet ski? And what an amazing fiance that is just willing to sit here and watch this whole terrible choreographed number.
Longtime listeners of the podcast will remember on our episode earlier this season, I gave Leonard Batman Returns for our Christmas episode of the pod, and Leonard watched half of Batman Forever, which is just a totally different Batman movie. So now I think we need to institute some guide rails for future picks. I'm going to give Leonard my suggestion a week before we record, as per usual, and then I will text him every day the title of the film just so that he doesn't forget it.
I want to also include like some links to Wikipedia articles, photos of the cover.
So Leonard,
guys,
which movie did you watch last night?
I'm not even upset because I punished myself in this whole thing, but I watched Big Fat Greek Wedding last night, which was, I actually enjoyed.
Okay,
we'll talk about that.
Yeah,
we'll talk about that.
I can go into it a little bit if we want, and then we can reveal Leonard's pick, which I got on the first try. I did. I am a Greek boy. My mother emigrated from Greece. She was born in Athens along with the rest of her family. So this was a bit of a sentimental pick. But I also, once Rob gave us the prompt, I thought about it for 5 minutes. I was like, there's definitely better. We've gone over some of them. There are more indicative glow-up movies. She's All That, My Fair Lady, Miss Congeniality, Princess Diaries. I think Anne Hathaway's
Can't Hardly Wait.
Annie Hathaway's on here a few times. Can't Hardly Wait, sure. But that would have been none of those movies resonate with me as did seeing My Big Fat Greek Wedding with my big fat Greek family in a movie theater in my hometown 18 years ago. and laughing so hard that my mom, who was pregnant and had the excuse of a newborn or an about to be newborn child sitting on her bladder, my mom and I remember just the memory of us racing out of the theater to the respective bathrooms so that we could get there before we peed our pants over some of the stuff. Like when they turn the sprinkler system on the Yaya, who keeps trying to sneak out to attack their Turkish neighbors, whether they're Turkish or not. It's a family film. Is it actually that laugh out loud funny? No, I'm willing to admit I elevate this movie a little bit in my mind because I'm Greek. This is a movie that speaks to that part of my my culture, my family. But I think regardless, it's a film anyone can enjoy. I think it's a film everyone at the time did enjoy. We'll go over it probably when we talk about stats, but this movie was in theaters for like as long as like Titanic. I mean, it was in theaters for like over a calendar year. It was a crazy hit. A small indie film from Nia Vardalos, a Greek writer who went on to have some other success, but I think this was and remains her calling card. And it's a classic story, ugly duckling story. Greek girl who feels ostracized from her kind of waspy neighbors and friends growing up because of her family, grows up to work in the diner. She's a little bit dowdy, I think is fair to say. She doesn't follow her dreams personally, and it's her learning to empower herself. And what I like about this film, and why I think it fits, is it's a glow-up movie, but it is not, this chick took off her glasses and now she's hot. Now she's the prom queen. It's like she straightens her hair. She gets better frames that work for her, or she gets contacts. She starts dressing with a little bit more confidence. I think it's the Tan France model of self-empowerment. I think it's the find the inner beauty within. We don't need to change things surgically, or we don't need to have someone dress sluttily. It's more about, I think it's a nice glow up where her internal and her external kind of grow and mature. And that's why I picked this film. Leonard, what did you think about it? Or Rob, we're going to get to what you think about it. But Leonard, if you want to give us a brief thing about what you thought, and then and please let us know your pick.
Oh man, I honestly was in a terrible mood when I started this movie. The Saints had just lost. I was upset about the fact that I watched Mamma Mia. But it was a very just like simple, crowd pleasing type movie. It's got something for everyone. Like you said earlier, I feel like you can take the whole family to watch. It's a PG rated movie, even though it's like a romantic comedy with a love story. It's not your traditional glow up makeover movie. But it has its aspects of that. And I like the fact that it's like a love story, but the love story is more in the background. And it's not like, oh, they have to go through all these trials and tribulations in a relationship. It's not about that. It's about him having to deal with this fucking insane family. And the family is the movie. And it was hilarious. I loved all the bits. The jokes are great. It wasn't necessarily laugh out loud funny, like you said. But I was just smiling, I feel like, the entire time and laughing. And I enjoyed it. So I'm not mad about it at all.
And of course, you picked. I'd never. I'll be honest, Rob. When Leonard sent you this pick, were you surprised? I was like, how? I've never seen the movie that you picked. You're about to reference it. I'll stop beating around the bush. But I was like, where does this movie come from for Leonard? Because I feel like a lot of the other movies, I'm like, yeah, I could see Leonard watching this movie during. I could not place where in your life you would have been when you encountered this film. And came to love it, but you were right on it. You had this pick in your back pocket.
It's a funny way I came about this. My mom had this movie on VHS, and it said "Working Girl" on the front. So, and it wasn't like an actual VHS. It was like
now
dubbed.
I'm starting to see.
It was dubbed like off of HBO, like when you recorded shit on tape. So I was like, all right, let me check out what this is.
Did you think you were finding porn? Is that what you're
Yeah, I was like, yes. I
porn.
thought I was finding porn. And then I learned women can do things.
You thought
I was like a 13-year-old boy.
And you watched the whole movie about like a girl in the 80s like finding
Yes.
empowerment.
There are. Listen, I'm not trying to downplay. There are some boobs in this movie. I guess I'm saying that. And Leonard
Yes.
maybe saw a boob when he was starting to doubt if it was porn, and he goes, "I'm going to give it another 15 minutes." Harrison Ford is in this porn.
He's handsome. That's a handsome man.
Oh, yeah.
But I think I did get release. But
Oh God.
anyways, I didn't appreciate the movie until I watched it as an adult, and I actually watched it during the quarantine a few months back, and I was like, damn, this movie is good as fuck. And then I watched it again like a couple weeks later, and when Rob made the suggestion of Glow Up movie, I was like, oh shit, this is the perfect movie for me. It holds some weight, and I've known about it. And honestly, most of the Glow Up movies I have not seen. All the movies y'all named, I think I've only seen like Can't Hardly Wait. But Working Girl is not necessarily a makeover movie, but more like a glow up movie. It's more about class, misogyny, and just like a woman like changing her mindset and being braver and making her way and showing that she is smart. Like it's not like, oh, she got smarter or she got this or that. It was like, no, the glow up is in her mentality, and it still has the makeover aspect.
Yeah, she does also change her suit
because
and change her hair.
she loses the shoulder pads, she cuts the hair, she takes her boss's wardrobe, and
The hair in this movie is insane. And Rob, thank you for being patient while we talked about our picks. But please, the floor is open if you want to say what you thought about these picks. I think they're both appropriate. I think usually Leonard and I are attacking each other for not adhering closely enough to the prompt. I feel like we both, we can talk about who's a better fit, but I feel like we both agree that these movies work. But were you anticipating either of these picks when you thought of this prompt, Rob?
No.
Sorry. Had you seen these movies before?
I'd seen both the movies. I thought they were like deeper cuts than I was expecting. Honestly, I thought Leonard was going to say She's All That or something that's a little bit more like a stereotypical movie. I thought they were both interesting. It made me like wonder, I'm like, what is a glow up movie? And I kind of started thinking about it. For me, I think it's they usually have like some comedy involved in how like the dowdy phase, like there's some silliness. Both of those have that. Like for the archetype, there's a makeover in the middle, ideally set to music montage. I think that's always like a nice like cherry on the sundae, but that's not necessary. And then I think during the arc of it, like the main thrust of it is they always wind up succeeding temporarily because of the makeover and the glow up, and then realizing that can't get them everything they want, and then eventually fully succeeding because of who they were originally. And that's what I like about them, like that underdog element of like, you had the power all along, just maybe get some better outfits for your own edification. But it's not necessary to get where you want to go.
Funny thing is, we just last week had our high school movie prompt, and Leonard picked The New Guy, which I think that was maybe more along the lines of what I was saying, because that's a glow up movie. It's also a high school movie, so it works both ways. But I was thinking more along the lines of that would be Leonard's pick. Instead, he picked a thoughtful story of female empowerment from the late 80s, and I was pleasantly surprised. I certainly had never seen this movie. In fact, I also had a little bit of a mix-up. When you said Working Girl, my brain, because I've never seen it, my brain gave me 9 to 5, which I've also never seen, but the Dolly Parton Jane Fonda movie, and Lily Tomlin, and I was like, okay, and then I did this crazy thing where I looked back at the text and I said, nope, Working Girl, and I found the right film, which is why I didn't wind up having my own Mamma Mia situation on my hands. But part of me was like, oh, I kind of wish either of the movies we gave Rob had that, we all, when you say glow up movie, you think of a certain movie, but really you think of a scene, and it's someone at a mall with a clothing change montage. I think most recently people who watched Wonder Woman 1984, which just makes our cutoff because it's from 1984. We can talk about that movie. That has that classic scene. Well, it's a classic scene, maybe not in this movie, but with Chris Pine, where he's just trying on different 80s fits. And it's sort of like, I don't know, there's some 80s song playing in the background, I'm sure. And, it's that thing where they're trying on different outfits. Some of them are ridiculous. Some of them just don't fit or whatever. And then they cut to the friend or the love interest, and they're always sitting there in the chair going like, no, I don't think so, buddy. Like, there's a lot of that. And then, that one final one where they're like, that's the one. I kind of wish that we had a couple of those classic scenes in here.
Honestly, when Rob suggested glow up makeover, my first initial thought was The New Guy. And we hadn't really chosen our high school movies. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to do the new guy for this. I'm going to do the new guy. And I switched my high school movie because I actually hadn't chosen one. And once I did that, I instantly thought of Working Girl. And I kind of didn't want to force Rob to watch the new guy. I just was like,
save that for Cassie.
But yeah, I forced Cassie to watch it. I just felt like it fit high school better for me. And as far as my choices, but I have many layers. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you're an onion.
Working Girl is just it obviously has its problems, but I still feel like it has a lot of the things you want in the glow up movie. Like the best friend Joan Cusack is amazing.
Joan Cusack's hair is so high in this movie it defies science.
The hard thing with
crazy
80s fashion movies is it's always hard to tell when they're intentionally like they're supposed to look bad and when they're supposed to look hot. Sometimes like that scene in the beginning of Terminator where they like get made up and they do like the teased hair to go to the club
yeah.
and they say we look hot right now. I always thought that was a joke, and then I like understood context later. I was like, oh, that's how girls dressed in the 80s. And there's like a tinge of that with Working Girl with the makeover where you're like, oh, that's like what was in vogue right then.
The multicolored eyeliner that Melanie Griffith and in the beginning of the movie and Joan Cusack throughout are wearing is like absurd because it doesn't even blend. It's like blue and yellow and blue. It looks like war paint. It's crazy.
I think I might watch a whole movie that just took place in that bar with those characters yelling at each other because Joan Cusack's so fun and the weird makeup and
that scene where Joan Cusack pretends to be her assistant because Harrison Ford is like surprising her at work, and so she's using her boss as that. A quick plot. Leonard did a great job describing it, but it's much the same plot in Working Girl. Melanie Griffith is our main character. She is an assistant. She's hardworking, but she can't get ahead because she doesn't have the. It's Wall Street in the 80s. She doesn't
straight
have
out of high school.
She doesn't have the traditional Harvard, Ivy League background, so she can't advance. She comes to a situation where she's working for Sigourney Weaver, who is incredible in this movie. Sigourney Weaver is great. She plays her boss, Catherine, who winds up stealing a great idea that she has, and she's going to profit off it, except then she goes for a ski trip, breaks her leg, and now she's out of commission. Melanie Griffith finds out she was going to be backstabbed. She decides instead to go through with the plan herself and present herself as an exec. She gets a makeover, so she looks a bit more professional. She loses the 80s do. She loses the boyfriend in Alec Baldwin. And she winds up romancing Harrison Ford over the course of accomplishing this deal and propelling herself forward in her career as well. So in that scene where Harrison surprises her at work and Joan Cusack is just there talking with her, she goes, "You need to pretend to be my secretary." Joan Cusack is so funny, just like, typing at the computer. Like, it's very standard secretary things, but she does it with just that little bit of quirk that's quite funny. And I think if we're in broadcast news at this time, like this was the heyday of Joan Cusack plays your best friend in 80s movies. She was killing it.
I feel like you just forgot about the best line of that whole scene, and maybe one of the best lines of the movie. Would you like some coffee, tea, or me?
Yeah. Yep.
Other great line. I forgot about that, but I've got a head for business and a bod for sin.
Oh, yeah. I rewound that. I wasn't sure I heard that right.
That part did not age well. Did not age. That whole initial meeting of Melanie Griffith's character and Harrison Ford's character is the worst part of this movie.
I'm glad that Leonard got there before I had to get there. I don't want to be the guy that brings it. Harrison Ford's giving off kind of weird energy when you first meet him in this movie. A man who needs no glow up, Harrison Ford.
Well, it was just like, first of all, just the whole like, all right, well, I have to be sexy. I mean, I guess it makes sense in the time. Like she was also using her sex appeal, and then when she takes the Valium, and then she's like, oh, he's like, let's take some. Let's. Right. When he's like, let's not say each other's names, and let's not. It was like, okay, you're not here for business. And then they try to make you be like, oh, Harrison Ford's a good guy because he didn't take advantage of this drunk woman. It's like, no. I just felt like that scene wasn't necessary.
And he lies to her because, she goes to this social kind of event looking for him. He lies to her when she says she's looking for him. Jack is his name, I think, and says like, oh, he just left. And then he starts to do some tequila shots with her. She's on antihistamine, so she gets drunk.
She took some Valium.
Oh, she took Valium. I'm sorry.
She tells him that he took anti.
Did you have like the mom edit for the airplane, Quinn?
I think I might have seen the mom edit. She gets smashed. Harrison Ford brings her back to his apartment over his shoulder like a caveman returning
because
from
she's like, I'm gonna get you a taxi home, and she doesn't remember her address.
Yeah.
Literally
So he
passed out in the back of the taxi when he finds her.
Yeah.
Like her legs are.
He
just there.
slings her. Yeah, I thought that was supposed to be I think that's what you're supposed to think. She was maybe doing it seductively, but then he gets in the cab and she's just zonked.
He thought it was seductive, and he gets closer and she's passed out. And I'm like, oh boy.
He brings her back. She wakes up in the same bed. I'm willing to go as far as him bringing her back because he doesn't know where else to take her. He doesn't want to leave her in the cab, so he brings her back to his place because she doesn't give him an address. But then he strips her down to her lingerie, and then they sleep in the same bed. She wakes up next to him, and she goes, "Did anything happen?" And he's like, No, it's all cool. And she goes, "Well, I wasn't in my bra and panties when I fell asleep." And he goes, "I changed you, and I closed my eyes the whole time." And she goes, "The whole time?" And he goes, "I might have peeked. Who can remember?" And I was like, damn, you're lucky you're Harrison Ford in 1988. That shit doesn't fly.
I was thinking that when I watched it, I was like, it's a testament to like his appeal, and it's still creepy, but that he can somewhat pass it off where you're like, okay. But I'm like, that's a disturbing sentence.
I might have peeked.
I might have.
The whole scene is disturbing, and it's way too long. It's like, why are you going so in depth into like trying to like, this is Harrison Ford. This motherfucker's sexy as fuck. We don't need to find him endearing in any type of way. Just like, you could have done the scene without having him like slowly strip her clothes off and like have us watch like that. That just wasn't necessary. But you know, it was the 80s.
Then she shows up to the meeting the next day because she has a meeting with him, and she wanted to meet him at this social event the night before. She shows up to the meeting the next day. He still hasn't told her who he is, and she sees him in the border. Like that's. And maybe that's part of it. It's a character building moment. She still sits down. She gives her presentation. She convinces the other people in that room that her plan is solid. But it's like, if you do kind of dig this woman, Harrison, maybe tell her, hey, by the way, when you get to this meeting in an hour, it's going to be me in there. Don't be totally thrown by that. But it all works out.
It all works out. I guess movie magic. Things are different in real life. Have you guys ever gotten really drunk and had someone undress you to try to put you to bed? Because I have, and it did not go that way. It was a lesbian friend. It was like my 21st birthday.
I was like, I hope you don't.
Yeah, please expand. Lesbian friend.
She was just trying to make me comfortable. She tried to like undo my jeans, and apparently I kicked her in the tit really hard.
Oh boy, titty kicking.
She told me the next day. I was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry," and she's like, "That's a good reflex. If you're like out of it and someone tries to take your clothes off, just kick them." And then I woke up fully clothed on a couch. So that's like a less traumatizing way.
I don't think anyone's ever tried to undress me while
I fall hard. You're not getting me any part of me up to take an article of clothing off.
Yeah, if I'm like really drunk, me being a black man, I don't allow myself to get blackout drunk because I don't ever want to be accused of something and go to jail for something I didn't do. But when I get really drunk, I'm just like, I'm one of those persons who's vocal about it. So I'm just like, just like throwing my arms everywhere.
Sounds like
so
the
I don't
Wicked
think
Witch melting.
no one wants to be around me.
I have a question about this part of the movie too. I want to ask before we forget. That line that's said in the bar, that I've got a head for business and a bod for sin, I think is said in this like weird, breathy baby voice that she uses a lot in the movie, but I think that's like the apex of it. And it's kind of ridiculous to me. I just wanted to ask you as two straight guys, is that hot? You guys both have very blank faces right now.
I think it was honestly the 80s sheen that this movie has. I am a child of the 90s. I find most 80s fashions ridiculous, and a lot of 80s music. Like the 80s has undergone a tremendous renaissance, and I find a lot of synth-based music cool now when I used to think it was lame. But it doesn't translate so much as like when you first meet, you know, I think Melanie Griffith and Joan Cusack are beautiful women, obviously. But it to me, there was that detached because they were dressed kind of like clowns in the beginning of the movie with all that makeup. She does her glow up. I mean, obviously Melanie Griffith is beautiful, but I was not that turned on by that scene, Leonard.
I can't stand that breathy, like baby, high pitched voice.
Specifically, like the breathy baby voice thing.
No, that's.
I'll tell you who I
thing.
was surprisingly attracted in this movie because I was introduced to her in Aliens and Ghostbusters when I was not really. I've never. I guess I'll say. I'll admit it. I've never really had a thing for Sigourney Weaver. I think she's great, but I've never really had she's never been like one of my crushes. But in this movie, I was like, oh, okay, yeah. So Sigourney Weaver in this movie did it for me. Maybe because she's playing the villain. I liked her as like the bad, the villain character.
Does it have anything to do with like the ski accident and the cast? Are we maybe finding like a fun new fetish for you, or you're really into?
It's not a foot thing, although she does wear like a nightie while she's in the hospital. She's not wearing a gown. It was before then, but it also continued then, Rob. So yeah,
I also never really found Sigourney Weaver that attractive because I always thought I just saw her as
she's
an
tough.
alien,
She
like
kicks ass,
covered
yeah.
in dirt and like, which was still attractive. But Melanie Griffith was hot as fuck when she cut that hair off. When that hair got chopped and she lost those shoulder pads, that shit was hot. In that black dress she wore. But the whole voice breathy thing, nah, man, I can't fuck with that.
Question for you now, Leonard, because I feel like this movie's a little bit different in the Glow Up movie, where a lot of times they start out like dowdy and they go more like conventional hot girl or hot guy. There's a couple like male variants, like Can't Buy Me Love. But it's not with like this business angle. So Working Girl's interesting because part of her makeover is that she is dressing more professionally and more sleek. So are you into like an executive, like business woman?
Hey, listen, any sugar mamas that are listening to this podcast, holla at your boy. Okay? Because I've never really been with a woman much older than me. I've been with women older than me, but not like much older than me. And I'm getting older. So my window's closing. So yes, it's hot. Yes, I'm down with it.
Okay, so if there's any like female CEOs with sensible, sleek haircuts, hit you up.
Hit me up. I eat ass. I swear the dick is good. I've been told. Just holla at your boy. But let's talk about the big fat. We've been talking a lot about Working Girl.
I do have a transition to that movie though, actually, Rob, because you're asking us as straight men how we find the women in this movie, which is totally valid. As a gay man, if I'm not being too forward.
What?
Do you? Yeah, I know. I know that I'm not outing you. I don't know why I hesitated that way.
Very polite of you. Thank you. Hey, girl.
Are you? Obviously, I mean, I think. Listen, Harrison Ford has a. It doesn't matter what your sexuality is. It's Harrison Ford, right?
Sexy.
But so obviously Harrison Ford in this movie is quite a looker. What's your take on the romantic lead in My Big Fat? We can transition that way. Ian Miller, played by from Sex and the City.
Corbett.
John Corbett. Of course, you would know that, Rob. What were your thoughts on the eye
I think
candy?
the fact that I knew his name instantly kind of gives you a lead.
Yeah, that tells me.
I might have been like, very interested in him. I like wrote down what his name was in My Big Fat Greek Wedding for myself because for me he's eternally Aiden from Sex and the City.
Right.
I've always been like screw Mr. Big, Team Aiden. She should have been with Aiden until the sequel. Aiden was the hot one, good boyfriend. I really came into. Because we're not talking about Sex and the City, we're talking about Big Fat Greek Wedding. But even when I
Go
first
off,
saw
Rob.
it,
It's all right.
That role was after Sex.
We
and the
talked
City.
about Mamma Mia for 5 minutes on this podcast. If you want to talk
No,
about
I have
Sex
thoughts
and the
on
City.
Mamma Mia. I was being polite earlier, and then Working Girl just jumped in. He's a snack. I guess like he does a good job. I've always had a thing for him. Went into the movie. I think I saw it originally because he was in it, not for all the romance vibes. And
Sure. Great hair.
I think honestly, between Harrison Ford and John Corbett's characters, I want to say that I guess maybe I'd like to wind up with a Harrison Ford type guy, but I think in real life I'm going to wind up with like an Aiden/Ian type guy, where he's just like he's a teacher, he's nerdy, he's sweet. Like that's my home base. That's what I'm used to.
Yeah,
he's like great.
Harrison Ford is pretty gruff. They are definitely two different types, right? Like Ian's a bit softer, features and in character.
They make out so much in the car in this movie. If you want to talk about like the two sex scenes.
Well, Nia Vardalos wrote this movie, so I do feel like she's like, I think we need another makeout scene.
Makeout scene, and then they finally go to his apartment, and it's this weird external that was funny, where he like is like, here's my apartment, and standing, and she just fully jumps on him, which I hadn't thought about is fully the antithesis of the romantic scene from Working Girl, where she wakes up the next morning and wonders why. But
She gets brought in, slung over his shoulder.
I like the guys that are a little clueless and too nice. Where like back in my apartment, like do you want to see my furniture collection? You're like, no, I want to make out and like touch privates. But they're
And I will say, like Leonard, the movie is definitely about the culture shock for Ian in part, but obviously Tula, who's played by Nia Vardalos, the main character, is the main character, and it's really the movie is about her relationship with her family, because there's never really any tension in the rom-com element of it. Ian is not like, your family's driving me up a wall, which I actually appreciate because they kind of correctly got that it's about her difficulties with her family. But I think for that reason, Rob, what you're talking about is like he's just the platonic ideal, I would think, for a lot of people of a romantic lead, right? No issues. He's happy to get in the baby pool and convert to Greek Orthodox, and he's happy to, with the tu spitting and all that weird shit, and her brother giving him fake Greek phrases to say,
and her father spraying Windex on his hand right before he's about to eat food. Like he sprayed the Windex over the food.
Gus, can we talk about Gus, Tula's father? He is the my favorite part of this movie, I think. Or when I come back to this movie, played by Michael Constantine, makes me laugh the most. And I think most of the pop culture for this movie, if we can maybe start to get into some of the criteria, come from Gus. There's that famous runner, "Give me a word, any word, and I tell you the root of this word is Greek." That's like a total, if you remember anything from this movie, that's among it. He sprays Windex on everything because he thinks it is a one-all solution to any ailment, be it physical or if you burn yourself or whatever. And there's that great moment where he's old-fashioned. There's that great line where Tula wants to go to college and she needs to convince her dad and her mother, played by Lainey Kazan, who's also great. All the side characters. Andrea Martin is in this movie. She's great.
So good.
All the family members in this movie are very funny. But Tula's talking with her mom, and she goes, "Dad will never go for it. He'll never let me go to college. The man is the head of the family." And her mom goes, "The man might be the head, but the woman is the neck, and she can move the head in whatever direction she sees." And so those moments where they're like convincing him to go to college and he's too stupid to realize he's being played, like those are all great scenes. I think Gus is the low-key MVP. I did see it in the theater, yeah.
Do you remember the women cheering when she said that?
I remember there were some claps or something. Yeah,
like,
it's a great line.
I saw it in the theater, and women in the theater went crazy when she's like, "The woman's the next. She can stare wherever she wants," and all them, I remember that from the first time I saw it.
Then it just made it so much funnier when they like convince him that it was his idea. And he's like, "See, men, they have the great ideas."
Andrea Martin is so funny in that scene. She's trying to sell it like she's, because they're trying to put on a ruse for Gus, and she goes, "Woe to me, I am so depressed." Like she doesn't have like the delivery to sell this fake thing, but Gus doesn't see through it at all. He just continues for it.
Can I ask you guys a question about pop culture influence? Because I feel like, I don't know if it's just me, but speaking of Andrea Martin, there's that scene at whatever party they threw for the family where she gets
it was my twin
alone in the court. Yeah, the twin scene. She gets them alone, and then the whole reveal, like, it was my twin. That was the first time I ever saw like that weird "I ate my twin in the womb" gag, and I feel like that got played out so many times after that.
I agree with you. I think this is, I'm not saying they're the first thing to ever make a joke about a vestigial twin, but I think this was like, in that way, I've seen it a lot since. I think you're right. I think that is a pop. It's certainly a pop culture scene from this movie, and I think it inspired other similar.
I knew nothing of this scene.
Yeah,
and the way they delivered it was just amazing. It was not what you expected. I thought she was going to be like, "Oh, you must be a doctor, and can you help me out with this lump on my neck?" And she's like, "No, I'm just going to reveal this extremely."
They found teeth and a spinal column. Yes, it was my twin. Spanakopita. It's great. Andrea Martin is another gem in this movie.
Rob, you were saying something before I cut you off.
I just feel like there was like a 5-year period where there was like vestigial twin jokes out the yang, and we've kind of come out of it now. So the market's ripe. I feel like we can go back to it, but I just, every other time that was mentioned in in another show, or they'd be like, "Oh, I ate my twin in the womb," blah 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 blah. In my head, I was always like, Andrea Martin did it first. Like,
I've got a buddy cop spec script about two cops. They're vestigial twins, and so I think now is the time for me to take that on the market. But yeah, so we kind of have grazed on pop culture. I think there are some things from Working Girl that, other than the fact that Working Girl so clearly embraces the kind of dual aesthetics of the 80s that I think a lot of us think about, which is that kind of big hair. I don't know if you'd call it punkish. I don't know what exactly you'd call her pre-makeover look. Glam look. And then also the kind of yuppie Wall Street culture are both portrayed in this movie. It feels very 80s. So I don't know if you want to talk about that, Leonard.
I don't really know much pop cultural influence it had because I was so young when it was out, and I'm sure it had some influence on the 90s. I know there's the one scene in The Office where Dwight finally becomes the manager, and he picks up the phone and he calls Mose, and he's like, guess what? You won't believe where I'm calling you from right now. Just like that epic shot at the end of Working Girl. The first opening shot is just
I
like,
never
hey,
thought that was a Working Girl reference. I've seen that.
that is
times.
directly from Working Girl.
For sure.
Like, it's just like the American dream. The first shot of like, hey, you can make it in like, and the shot of like you seeing the city, New York City, and seeing her starting out all lowly and like working her way up, and just the way the movie ends with her calling her best friend, be like, you won't believe where I'm calling you from right now. And they just like pan out and you see her in that one little office in that building. And then just like, you see the whole big picture and it's just like, damn, that was dope.
Yeah. The cast in this movie is stacked. And there are so many people, you know, a couple people today, like there's a Kevin Spacey is, you know, kind of like, "Ew," but at the time that was before he kind of broke.
He solely became a creep for this role.
Yeah, he plays a Kevin Spacey type creep in this movie.
For the rest of his life, he was like, all right, I'm going to play this trope, and pop culture is going to remember me for that.
But obviously Alec Baldwin is her sleazy boyfriend Mick. Oliver Platt is in this movie briefly in the beginning. He's one of her like finance bros that she says he has a micro dick because he sets her up with Kevin Spacey. Joan Cusack we've mentioned. I mean, if Han Solo and Ripley are in the same movie and it's a rom-com, I mean that's pretty interesting.
I didn't put that together until you just said it.
Right?
Should have been on the poster.
You know what's funny? I don't know how you guys would have felt about it, but Alec Baldwin was originally supposed to play Jack. He was supposed to play Harrison Ford's character, and they wanted more star power, so they got Harrison Ford and bumped Alec Baldwin down to the sleazy boyfriend. And apparently Harrison Ford just wanted to do something different because he had just done literally everything. Indiana Jones, Han Solo, fucking...
Yeah, I read this was his first romantic...
Blade Runner.
Like strict rom-com lead, which is interesting.
And how do you think would this movie been better or worse if... I felt like Alec Baldwin was great as the sleazy boyfriend.
He's so good as like a weird skis ball. I think that was probably for the best. I mean, look at like what he's done since then with like 30 Rock and playing Trump on SNL. Like, I feel like he has fun being somebody he doesn't like.
I will say this. I think I absolutely agree. Alec Baldwin kills it as Mick, which is definitely it's a supporting role. Harrison Ford is the male lead, but like he's great in that role, and that's more than just shitty boyfriend. There's a little bit more depth to it. He is a shitty boyfriend, but he's also he represents like she takes him back at one point, and then she kind of reneges on that almost as quickly, and it's the idea that like going back to Mick is going back to her old lifestyle. She needs to not just stand out on the ledge. She needs to leap. So I like that. You know, she sees him at the wedding kind of towards the end of the movie, and he's now with this other woman that he was cheating on her with. And so, like, you feel like he probably does care about her, but he's just such a scummy guy that, like, you know.
I was so upset when
Doreen.
he just announces that they're getting married in front of the whole bar.
Without a
and
ring.
She just, like, allows that to happen, and then she, like, goes at him after the fact. But I was just like, I wish you would in the moment be like, no, get the fuck out of you. But he was such a skis.
I will say, if he played Jack, the Harrison Ford character, he would have been, you know, more age appropriate. Although I don't think the age is an issue with Harrison Ford, but he also would have been more, I think, the archetype of a 80s yuppie Wall Street guy. Harrison Ford doesn't really give that off. Which is probably, maybe you could argue that's why it works, because he's not one of those guys. But Baldwin's already got like the slick back hair. You put him in a fine Armani suit, you could definitely see him as a very different interpretation of the character Jack. And then maybe he's finding his humanity, blah, blah, blah. I think it's a different role with Alec Baldwin. It would have been interesting, but obviously if you can get Harrison Ford in your movie, you do that.
I don't know if it's relevant like to the larger audience, but I think the biggest pop culture moment for me from Working Girl is actually the episode of Bob's Burgers where they did the Working Girl Die Hard mashup.
Die Working Hard Girl.
Die Working Hard Girl as a musical.
I'm so glad you brought that up.
Now I have to go and watch that episode. So I don't know if I've watched that specific episode.
They make a musical out of Working Girl, and then they combine it with a competing musical about Die Hard, and it's great. And even the original Working Girl, the musical, so funny when they're just doing it.
And I believe in real life, art imitating fiction, Cyndi Lauper is trying to currently, I don't know how that's going with the Broadway currently closed down, but she's currently making a musical adaptation out of that movie. So sort of
Hope they use the music from
TBD, I
Bob's
guess.
Burgers. Just that one,
Yeah.
the Working Girl, Hardly Working song. Yeah. No, I will pay to see that. That's all.
What I did like about both these movies, they are both, I think, considered romantic comedies. But in both movies, it's not the forefront. It's not the entire story. I like the fact that it's not too sappy and too just like this or that. The fact that, I mean, it is a little weird that in My Big Fat Greek Wedding there literally is no problems and he's like the perfect guy.
Right.
But it wasn't necessary because the family is the story. The family is the meat. The family is what you want. So, but also in Working Girl, they could have made it to where like, oh, he's kind of like her savior and like, oh, but like she still does what she can do in spite of him, even though she does need his help, but like, it's not like because of him. And the story of her like glow up and trying to make it is more of the story than her trying to find love. And what I didn't like though about Big Fat Greek Wedding was she had to find a man to find meaning to her life. Like she was just living this day-to-day life, had no goals, no thoughts, but then as soon as she found this man, her life had meaning.
I would push back on that slightly. I'm interested in Rob's take on these movies as well. And I guess my soft rebuttal to Leonard's points would be, I think it starts with Tula in My Big Fat Greek Wedding, of her wanting to go to college to learn a trade. She just doesn't want to die in the family's diner. She does see Ian. She does kind of make goo eyes at him and kind of act like a fool when she's waiting on him at her family's diner when we first meet the character. But she doesn't go to a specific school for him. She goes for herself. She wants to learn. She wants to grow, and her glow up is the same. She's not specifically doing it to get this man. He does re-enter her life, and he doesn't really recognize her right away because she's changed. But I would say she is doing that for her, and I think it's less to be appealing to a man. I think it's more to just feel confident in herself. And then
I didn't mean the glow up specifically.
Oh,
I just meant like,
just that she. Yeah, no, totally. I mean, finding Ian is a big part of that's the movie. But and I would say I think we've talked about a couple of the things from Working Girl that hit a little bit tone deaf: the body for sin, the Harrison Ford bring her back, and I would just note that this movie was directed by Mike Nichols, who's an incredible director. Some of my favorite movies: The Birdcage, The Graduate. But it's a guy. It's written by a guy, Kevin Wade, who. So I'm sure that Melanie Griffith had a lot of input into her character, and there were hopefully women consulted about some of these things. But for a movie about female empowerment to be kind of written and directed by two separate guys, I would offer instead perhaps My Big Fat Greek Wedding, which is written and directed by Nia Vardalos. A woman.
I understand that, but it's also 1988 versus 2000.
I'm just pointing
right.
it out.
You're right. You're very right.
Rob, what did you think? How did these movies hold up to you?
I feel like they both work. I think because there's some problematic moments, but the central themes are kind of true enough. Obviously, Working Girl's dated, but I think My Big Fat Greek Wedding is a little bit, outside of the fashion, hard to place in time because, Quinn, how big is your family?
It's funny actually. It's not that big of a fat Greek family. I've got a few cousins, but it's not like 15
27?
cousins named Nick. We have a bigger family still in Greece, but my mom was one of three, so our family on this side is it's moderately sized. I've got three cousins from my uncle and then one cousin from my other uncle, like my mom's two brothers. So it's not huge. However, I did grow up. I grew up in New Jersey. My mom's family owned diners and laundromats. So when they would look after me, I would spend my days growing up at a Greek diner in Bound Brook, New Jersey. And so that kind of culture, there were a lot of family friends. I've been to cookouts where we roasted a lamb on a spit in the backyard, which is featured in this movie. I know people named Gus and Nick, multiples, and a lot of the I wouldn't even call them stereotypes. That feels too harsh, especially since they're coming from Nia Vardalos. She speaks truth to a lot of those kind of Greek American cultures. Obviously, I had a yaya. She was not Turk crazed, but she remembered the old country. Also, I think why I love Gus so much is there is a little bit of Greek exceptionalism that remains. Not so much about the country now, or it's really, we're talking ancient Greece, right? There's that great scene where he says to Ian, when your people were swinging from trees, mine were inventing mathematics or something like that. Like there's
the line
that there are just those moments of like, we created math and science. We're great. Every root of every word is Greek that I've definitely seen before.
But what's great about that trope is like there's one of those type of people for every type of ethnicity or region.
Yeah.
So
I think that like that's still happening. There's still big families. Like that part's still really true. And I remember I was in college when this came out. I'm a little older than you guys. But there was like this weird thing because it started as an indie movie and then just like grew. That's why it was in theaters for so long. It was like word of mouth just started getting recommended. So it was like percolating forever and people were recommending it. Everyone was talking about it. And there was like this weird phase where everyone wanted to have a big crazy family, whether they had one or not. It was like that universal truth. And so even people that had like one cousin would be like talking about how crazy their big family was and trying to like compare themselves to the movie. Even though I'm like, you have one cousin, what are you talking about? And they're an accountant. Like, how is that? They're like, no, it's just like me and my family.
Be like, there's that one time he didn't put salt in the potato salad.
So it's like, you're joking, but that is what people are saying. And then they look at you like, what crazy? But I think it's kind of universal in that sense and timeless in that sense. And they were smart enough not to make the whole thing on cell phones, so we're not staring at the old, early generation cell phones getting distracted. Like,
as much as this movie resonates with me, who it really resonates with, and if we were to have a special guest in this podcast, it would be today, but we don't. This movie really resonates with my mom. My mom was
Hold on. Shout out to Quinn's mom.
Shout out to my mom.
Shout out to Quinn's mom.
She was born in Athens, so she is native Greek technically, but she was very little. She was a baby when her family came to the United States, and she grew up as the, Americanized girl in a very Greek family. Her parents spoke Greek. She wasn't allowed to have a boyfriend. A lot of those same tropes that Nia feels my mom experienced. So I think that as well, kind of growing up hearing all my mom's stories and obviously being very close with my yaya, I kind of knew that kind of, even though I had a very Americanized life, obviously. And my mom
is your father's not Greek.
My mom married, strangely, my dad is from a big fat family. He's one of 8. But they are Irish Catholic, and they're like America from way back, so they don't have the kind of Irish ties and the culture, the other culture that you bring. They're very Americanized. And they were, a little bit less showy and affectionate in that big, grand way that Greeks can be. So that element of her family kind of scaring Ian's family, I think also had some
The
parallels.
bunt cake scene? Holy shit. Bunt. Bun?
I fixed it.
Bun?
Is the best
I
part.
fixed it.
There's a hole in this cake.
What about the famous Andrea Martin lines? He don't eat no meat. Okay, I make lamb.
I make
is
lamb.
Absolutely, Greeks do not know what vegetarians are. That's not a thing. It's if you have a little bit of lamb to go with every dish. Although they eat very well, but they are definitely meat eaters. So I guess I'd just throw that on there.
All right.
It holds up to me much better than it could possibly hold up to anyone else. But like Leonard said, I think it.
Now it's that time
everybody.
where we ask ourselves, was Gary? I always want to say L because of Samuel L. Jackson. But
Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman. Was Gary Oldman in your film, Quinn?
He wasn't. It was a very small budget movie, My Big Fat Greek Wedding. And while Gary Oldman is a chameleon, I could definitely see him as a Greek uncle, perhaps.
Oh yes.
I could see him, as one of the Nicks that in that great scene where he's introducing his family. He's like Nick, Nico, and I could see that'd be a great 1-second character. Joey Fatone is in this movie. Joey Fatone is Italian. As far as I know, Joey Fatone has no Greek in him. That's fine, but I'm just saying if we're opening the pool. Sure, you could throw Gary Oldman in there. Otherwise, I don't think he really makes sense. He's certainly not an Ian Miller type. So I'm going to say, regretfully, no, Gary Oldman was not in this movie. Was he in Working Girl?
He was not. But I feel like he could have been the creepy guy in the limo for sure.
Oh, that would have been interesting, yeah. That was like Sid Vicious kind of.
Yeah. I think he could have been one of the like hedge fundmen or like one of the CEO guys that was like part of the deal that had to be there for that. He could have been like the last guy at the end, but he was probably too young to play that role.
I think he could have been
at
Nick.
the time. He could have been Nick.
Baldwin is great, but I think he could have definitely 80s Gary Oldman. He could have definitely been sleazy boyfriend.
I just want to talk about that old man with the long white beard at the end of the movie when they were like trying to make the final deal. What was up with that guy?
I don't know. Do you guys understand? This is a serious question. I actually wrote it down in my notes. Rob, please chime in. Do you guys understand how Wall Street works, how the stock market works? Like, most of this stuff I understood, as far as I understood, was her deal was this company, Trask Industries, wants to get into media because they're having a bear hug being put on them, which, if you've watched Succession, is when a company tries to kind of hostile takeover by somehow, I don't know. And so to diversify, they've got one coming from a Japanese company that's invested in them. They're trying to take over. So they want to get into TV. TV stations are hard to come by. So the plan that Melanie Griffith brings is buy a bunch of radio stations, because in the US, if you are involved in media, you cannot be taken over by a foreign conglomerate. It's a great idea. After that, I do not know what, like, I mean, I don't think it's important to the movie. this isn't a criticism. I'm just saying I don't understand what happens after that, really.
Yeah, I didn't know
Deal-wise.
what the fuck was going on there, but I don't know
Rob,
if
can you
Rob
explain
did.
finance to us?
They like sell parts of their company for money, and they have like boards where the numbers go across, and you can make it say words about other people if you're mad at them.
You're describing the Wall Street ticker?
the ticker. They have a ticker that goes across. I think what we're really hitting on here, because I don't know a ton about Wall Street, is that Quinn needs to make a remake of this movie that's less 80s rom-com and more that like financial expose like they did for the housing bubble. with
Oh,
Margot
like
Robbie
The
in
Big
bath.
Short?
What was that movie? The Big Short. You should
Oh,
do
Big
it.
Short's
for this
so
one.
good.
I do have a Big Short take on Working Girl, and it has a vestigial twin, and I will be taking that script to market post haste.
Oh.
Okay. Well, let's get into
You
statistics.
can run down some quick stats. Do you want to go first, Leonard? I've got Big Fat pulled up, but
I've got Working Girl pulled up.
go for it.
Working Girl, it was first of all, one thing we don't talk about in stats that I feel like we should start talking about in stats. Normally our movies don't fit this criteria is awards.
Oh, that's true.
A lot of Academy Award nominations were brought because of this film. Joan Cusack got a nomination for Best Supporting Actress. Sigourney Weaver, Melanie Griffith got Best Actress. It also got a nomination for Best Director and Best Screenplay.
Didn't
So
Carly Simon
that's-
get a nomination for the song?
I think she won
Yeah.
for the song. Yeah, I was waiting for you to bring that up. Carly Simon, "Let the River Run."
Yeah.
I believe won best song.
which is pretty dope. But let's go over these numbers on IMDb. It is a 6.8 out of 10.
That feels low. I really.
I
Like
know.
This
I'm
movie.
kind of surprised by that.
Yeah,
Surprisingly, on Rotten Tomatoes, it's an 84%.
that makes sense.
So that's pretty damn good. And let me find these numbers, how much money it made. You want to talk about?
Yeah, I also have it pulled up. If you want, I can. I'm seeing that it was made for $28.6 million in 1988, and it made $102 million. So it hit the century mark, which is great.
Yeah.
And we were talking about it. This is not a typical movie. This is not a typical Harrison Ford Indiana Jones movie that you would expect to make $100 million. So, and also Melanie Griffith was known, but I don't think a bankable box office star. In fact, I think that's why she's third billed. It's clearly her movie, but Harrison Ford and Sigourney Weaver are billed above her.
At the time, honestly, her just being in this movie was a glow up for her because she she was known for her underage relationship with Don Johnson. And
Wait, what?
Yeah, she had.
She is Dakota Johnson's mom.
Yeah,
She was underage when they got
She was
together?
underage. Yes, she was underage.
Wow,
and,
Leonard's got some vintage tea. Like,
And also she had done a few films, but they were like those Showtime type movies where
she was in
was just
Brian De
naked.
Palma's Body Double. and I
Yeah,
think
she's
she
just like
was
naked the
body.
whole time.
wait,
So-
Leonard, did your mom have a VHS copy of the Body Double that you found?
I wish she did.
I
'Cause
just
I'm
love
not
that
gonna
you
lie to
would
you.
think that your mom was recording porn. Any porn that you would want to look at.
Hey man, when you're a 13-year-old boy, you're searching. You're searching for anything, okay?
Shout out to Leonard's mom.
Yeah.
But Melanie Griffith was fucking hot in this movie. I can't deny it. She looked great. The movie did well.
was
And
big hit.
big hit. How about those numbers for
So,
Big Fat?
Speaking of big hits, this was an independent film. It was based on a one-woman play that Nia Vardalos was doing, I believe, in Los Angeles or maybe in Chicago. And it was seen by Tom Hanks' wife and fellow Greek, Rita Wilson, who was like, I want to help you make this story. She had apparently, Nia had tried to make the film before, but she'd gotten interest, but it was like, we don't want you to star in it. You know, maybe it's J-Lo's in it and it's my big fat, you know,
exactly
whatever. And so she stuck to her guns. She wanted to tell this Greek story. And honestly, there are certain Greek stereotypes. I don't think it's that big in pop culture in the same way that like Italians or whatever. So that was kind of a win. And she found Rita Wilson, who was able to do it with her. This movie is really like her Rocky. You know, it's like she's like, I want to write it. She didn't direct it. If I called her the director before, that was wrong. But she wrote it. She's so clearly the driving creative force behind this movie. And it was a phenomenon. This movie cost $5 million to make. The biggest star in this movie is maybe Andrea Martin or John Corbett. This movie made $368.7 million off a $5 million budget. I mean, that's like a Saw movie. Saw movies don't make that much money, and those are also made for cheap. It's insane how I'm looking just now at the box office performance. It never hit the number one spot, but it grossed that much money, and it's still one of the top romantic films of the 21st century. It was the 5th highest grossing film of 2002, and it was, let me see, I'm trying to find a set. Like I don't have it in front of me. I believe the movie was in theaters for like 15 months. That might be wrong. But it was in theaters for like a year.
I think it holds the record for like the highest grossing globally romantic comedy, which is wild. And also,
when you convert $328 million into drachma, I mean, who knows how much money that is?
Also, what's super interesting about how you said it was out for 15 months, and Rob was talking about how the word of mouth. It was more about word of mouth average. It wasn't really a big, marketed movie, but its biggest month or weekend was 4 months into its run, which is like extremely unheard of. In its opening weekend, it made $597,000. Yeah. But then in one weekend, 4 months later, it made $11 million, which is crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, it's a hit. It's truly like one of one when it comes to box office performance because of what a unique success it was. Honestly, it didn't make near as much money, but the only movie that I can think to compare it to in terms of longevity and picking up steam is like Titanic. I mean, it's like a movie that was a much more expensive film with higher margins but like that movie came out and people were like, okay. And then it was still there like a year later. It's that kind of a hit. I'll say this, all of that said, I realize I'll say this a lot and I'm trying to stop myself and I just caught myself saying it again. What a bummer. I will say this though. My Big Fat Greek Wedding, as big of a phenomenon that it was, I don't expect it to rate as well in the more opinion-based stats. Like I'm looking at the Rotten Tomato meter and it got 76%, which is actually a little bit higher than I would have thought. I mean, I think it's deserving of that, but I expect Working Girl to, it's probably the better film when you look at performances and script and structure and all that. But I think for how plucky and unthought of My Big Fat Greek Wedding was, and the fact that it's now kind of a staple in the romantic comedy genre and this new glow-up movie genre that Rob is helping us coin, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I feel like My Big Fat Greek Wedding is like a member of your family. If movies were people, it would be like the dad character, like a kooky uncle. Whereas I think Working Girl would be like your hot cousin that moved to the city that you kind of want to be like, but are also a little bit afraid of. And that shows in the popularity stats. Because I'm like, I don't think My Big Fat Greek Wedding would be low because it's lovable. It may not be like your sexiest friend, but like it's around, it's fun at holidays, it's family.
It's dependable.
Yeah. It's a very simple movie. And I don't mean that as a negative, but I mean, like, I think Working Girl has got a little bit more going on. It throws more conflicts and obstacles in the path of Tess, our main character, than does My Big Fat Greek Wedding. But yeah, I mean, this is about, we often don't pick winners based on what's the better movie. I mean, it's about what's more fitting for the prompt, and it's also about like, I think you could definitely argue for My Big Fat Greek Wedding as being like a better hang or an easier hang. I'm not even saying I'm making that argument, but I think that's how you would. And we've kind of walked through the criteria, Rob. We're now kind of at the fifth one. You created this prompt, and thank you for it. You must now decide. Don't let the fact that I just turned 30.
We don't get final arguments? Oh, this is your final argument.
This is my final argument, then let it all go. All right, we're in final arguments. Listen, I'm not even going to mention that I just turned 30 today. Okay, the same age as young Tula.
They're both 30.
Tula turns 30.
Yeah,
when she realizes she needs to kick her life into high gear. And I'm not going to mention what a staple this is for my family, watching it with my yaya. And
the yaya was so funny. Oh,
the yaya is the best. I guess I'll just say it's a family film. There are definitely better glow up movies. I mean, even Wonder Woman 1984 has that tradition. It's not a glow up movie, but it has that traditional. It's a glowing lasso movie. It has that traditional outfit change montage. This doesn't, but I think this hits all the marks in a slightly less conventional way. And I think if you were to tell anybody what this prompt was, they would say, "Oh, she's all that," or they would say, "My Fair Lady," or they would say, "The Devil Wears Prada." But then when you say, "What about My Big Fat Greek Wedding?" I think they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that works," because you remember it. It's not about glowing up so that you can get the guy, although she does. And it's not about glowing up so that you can just be hotter because I don't like being ugly. You know, I think Nia Vardalos, she looks much better after the glow up, but it's not surgically enhanced. It's not like she's wearing all this makeup. She just kind of looks happier. It's part of an overall change from within, and I think that's what qualifies it, and I think that's what makes it the better pick. Leonard, I cede the floor.
She actually does wear a lot of makeup. She does follow the classic trope of we have to make her look uglier. Like they make her look uglier at the beginning of the movie.
Oh, they definitely make her look uglier at the beginning. She's not like straightening her hair well or whatever.
Yeah, no. But I'm just saying. I was just making a little joke there.
I'm not saying she's wearing no makeup. I'm just saying she's not like.
I like both these movies, and I feel like they both have glow up makeover aspects to them. I feel like in my argument is I'm going to go a little bit at Big Fat Greek Wedding is the glow up in Big Fat Greek Wedding is just like, it's not even on the back burner. It's like, it's in the other room. It's a very short-lived glow up. It's in the first 30 minutes of the film, and then there's nothing else about glow up. It's more about the inner workings of her trying to figure out the dynamics between having a relationship and her family is more of the theme, I feel like, of this film. And Working Girl, I wouldn't necessarily say it also is your typical glow up or makeover movie like Can't Hardly Wait and She's All That and all that. But I feel like it's a continuous glow up process throughout the entire movie. She's trying to better herself throughout the entire movie. She changes her mentality for the better. She glows up. She gets the pinnacle scene at the end where she gets that everything she's been working hard for. She gets the job. She gets her opportunity. But there also still is the makeover aspect. She loses the hair. She loses the makeup. She loses the shoulder pads. She gets the cool new look by stealing her boss's clothes. So you're getting the makeover aspect. It's not a montage necessarily, but she tries out some clothes and there's that moment like, damn, you look good in that dress. And it has the classic best friend trope of like, I don't know if this is the right thing, but it doesn't necessarily fall in like, oh, you look better and this and that. But I like the fact that it's about the mentality makeover, the mentality glow up. She gets her opportunity. She takes it. She doesn't really need anyone else for this makeover crossover. She does it herself. She takes the initiative and she gets what she wants.
Rob, you've got quite a decision in front of you. I mean, if you want to sit and spin or if you want to
if you want to talk it out.
Wow, Quinn.
That means something else.
Right. Well, I knew when I was saying it. I was like, if you want to sit with it. I said sit and spin. That's like a sit on this and like I just insulted Rob. If you want to sit and spin, you can. But
whilst I'm sitting and spinning, there are just two things that didn't come up during the episode. I just want to touch on really quick. It's actually one for each of your points. For My Big Fat Greek Wedding, it's trivial. I was hoping it would come up, but I really love that she hid behind a water cooler. I don't know why.
Oh, yeah.
In rewatching it, that made me laugh so hard. It made me relate to her, and I feel like if I wanted to make it important, I could say it's a metaphor for like the makeover and hiding, and it's ridiculous because you can still see through the water, but that's bullshit. I just thought it was like a crazy object to hide behind while someone's staring at you through a window. It made me laugh.
Not very smart. It seemed to work though. I think he like looked around like
he was like, "Where is she?"
You could see her. It worked. Like little kids hide behind poles. Like but it was magical. It stayed with me. So I'm gonna add that into your column Quinn, on top of all the excellent points you made, that had an excellent hide and seek water cooler moment, which is a big plus for me.
Also integral to a glow up film is the water
Integral.
cooler.
I didn't mention it earlier because I wanted you to find it on your own, but now that we're done, I'll reveal that. And Leonard, I just have to say, for Working Girl, I'm really impressed, and I'm sorry we haven't brought it up earlier. But you doing this whole podcast in Melanie Griffith cosplay really shows me how dedicated you are to the film. And I have to say,
I got a shoulder pad in the eye earlier.
you look amazing.
Hey man, I straightened my hair, and it looks great. I think I'm gonna stick with this.
Before I decide, can I just get you? Can you say the famous line while you're wearing the outfit?
I've got a mind.
I've got goosebumps.
I've got a mind for business and a body for sin.
The Russian judge is going to take points off because I think it's a bod for sin.
Oh, excuse me.
It's all right.
Excuse me.
He's articulate. He knows more syllables than Melanie Griffith. He's his own woman. I'm giving it to him. I think I have to say I love My Big Fat Greek Wedding, Quinn, but I think Working Girl's a more quintessential film. All the points you made were excellent. I feel like you could enter it in so many categories. And it's to that film's credit that it can hang in a genre that's not its main driving thrust. But I feel like that's more quintessential, like the family thing is the central drive. And again,
On my birthday, Rob?
on your birthday,
On my birthday?
honestly, this is your cue to go take a computer class at a community college, maybe get some things together, get some contacts, some cutlets, and go find yourself a college professor.
I just want to thank the
bitches
quarantine.
won't even recognize me the next time you
I
see
just
me. I'm
wanna
going to
thank the
glow up so
quarantine.
hard, you're never going to recognize.
I knew the Melanie Griffith cosplay. It took me a while. I cut out sodas and I slimmed down, and I was able to get into this dress, and it was worth it.
Honestly,
I'm going to sick my moderately sized fat Greek family on you for this.
there's yours. Like that spin-off you were talking about with the documentary, that's the title. My moderately
Wow.
sized Greek family.
You'll never be able to buy feta in this town again. I swear to God.
Oh no.
And what's so funny was I really was excited, and I thought I had this episode 1 because I was like, Mamma Mia is not a glow-up film.
Yeah, I agree with that. Mamma Mia is not. Yeah, Leonard picked the wrong movie and you gave it to him. Damn it, Rob.
After you did that, I thought it'd be funny, but you guys argued so well I forgot. But I was like, what if I just picked Mamma Mia out of like? I was like, actually, Mamma Mia is the quintessential glow-up film.
Oh, that would be hilarious.
Watch
Okay,
it again, Leonard. You'll understand.
Rob, where can we find you? What's going on with you?
I am on an improv team with both of you called Lotions 11, and we have an Instagram page that I think is called Lotions 11, so you can find all of us on there if you like that. And then I produce a comedy show called Brighter Comedy. If you go to brightercomedy.com, you can see stuff that I'm working on. Also, I guess you could type my name into like Pornhub, but it won't be me. But that could be a fun adventure for somebody.
Is there another Rob Bowen on?
There's a baseball player named Rob Bowen. I don't know if he did porn. Now I'm gonna look at
okay.
myself after this and see. I'm gonna see what comes up if I type my name into Pornhub.
Oh yeah, I was on Brighter Comedy. Rob asked me on, and it was one of the most fun things I did in 2020. I had a great time playing that character, and it was fun. It was a great show. It was
so fun. Leonard played a character. And it's been a while. I just remember how fun it was, but you had a joint under a mask, is what I remember. And it took a while for you to take the mask off and have the joint, and I was like, "Holy shit!"
I was so excited for that reveal. It was a cigarette. It was like a fake cigarette. Like I was a gambling degenerate, and
I thought it was real. I thought you were that skilled at smoking pot, and I'm like, he's been going for 5 minutes with a joint under his mask, just getting high, and now he's pulling it down, and I can't tell. Okay, that makes more sense.
You guys have been in cahoots from the beginning, is what this is telling me. Rob did try to hype up our improv team, Lotions 11. I will say, for the time being, you can find us at twitch.tv/weimprov on Tuesday nights as part of Jake Jabor's wonderful online improv services.
Shout out Jake Jabor, our old coach, and he's doing great things in the improv community. He's a great guy.
Yeah, Rob, where can we find Jake?
Jake Jabor has a podcast called The Meat Improv. He also lives on Beechwood Avenue.
Now we're giving up too much. We're giving too much information.
I'm just trying to see how good Leonard's editing skills are. If I knew the number, I would have said it.
This is
See if
all
you can
staying
bleep
in.
it out.
This is all staying. I do as little as possible.
Leonard just checks volume levels. He doesn't cut.
This has been a lot of fun. Next week, we are going to be doing the movies everyone hates, but you love.
Yeah.
This was an interesting prompt for us to try to choose movies
very
for this.
difficult.
Very difficult to try to. It's a very subjective kind of prompt already on the subjective show, but we have. Oh man, a good friend of mine and a man who's out here killing it in the game. Carl Tart will be on the show next week. We got Carl, so it should be a fun time.
We tricked him. This was. But looking forward to that next week. And Rob, thank you so much for coming on. I disagree strongly with your verdict, but I appreciate you giving us this fun prompt. And
thanks for having me, guys.
I've got a lot of new clothing selections now. I feel like I look great.
Quinn, you got a little mascara or maybe some eyeshadow running there.
Yep, those are my fake eyelashes that I put in. They're falling.
All right,
more length.
We'll see you in the back of a limo.
See you at the cinema.